Aha! Freedom fighters! Welcome. It's Freedom Friday. Helen Bennett here, your coach, who's here to help you create a lot more freedom and relaxation around food and destroy all of those awful urges to binge and or purge for good. And the other urges we need to work on, of course, are the urges to restrict. The way I see bulimia, it's not just two behaviors. It's not just binge eating and purging. It's three. It's the urges to diet, to lose weight aggressively, to be in a thinner body, paired with the other two. In fact, that one causes the other two. So that's one of the urges we need to absolutely eliminate. So on that note, if you want to dive into a bit more of that, I've just done a live on my other channel. The link is in the description to my main channel. I'm there every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And today I went deep into the massive $1 trillion industry that tries to convince us that we need to diet, only for us to discover that there's a 98% failure rate of that industry, because diets do not work. In fact, they cause, or they're predictive of, weight gain. I need to be careful with my words there. There's a high correlation between dieting and, you'll never guess it, drum roll please, disordered eating. And most specifically, with what we're talking about here today, I certainly, when I was about 16, went to my first diet, and it wasn't soon after that I was binging and purging. And I know many people have reached out to me with a very similar story. It's a rare exception where there hasn't been some excessively restrictive dieting type of protocol that preceded the disordered eating behaviors. So we're not saying that all dieting causes disordered eating, but we are saying that there's a high chance of it, given that so many people have started with a diet and ended up spilling into binge eating or compulsive overeating. And then for some of us, purging through restricting and all the things. You know the drill. You're not here because you don't know what this is. All right, so it's Freedom Friday. Freedom Friday. If you're not on my email list, just let me know. I will pop you on. I will have a link to sign up to my newsletter. In fact, I think it is on the website, bulimiafreedom.com. And you also get access to the Bulimia Freedom webinar, etc., etc. But every Friday, I send out an email with some sort of food for thought, a really nice piece of content you can dive into on the weekends, and a 15-minute challenge specifically to be used if you are struggling with an urge. Just pull up the email, get busy with the challenge at the very least. That will buy you some time for the dopamine to subside. Because when we get that massive urge to restrict or binge or purge, it's because there's an association in our brain with the behavior that we could do that would feel good. And the dopamine rises to try and get us to do the behavior, because in expectation of the good thing that's coming, or the good feeling that's coming. That's why I think it's not about the food. It's about the feeling we think we can get from dieting, from binging, and from purging, right? We're chasing the feeling. And that feeling comes to be used for all sorts of things. It's nice when we're trying to escape a negative emotion. It might soothe us when we're anxious. It might give us something exciting to do or make us feel good when we feel low. So that we're chasing the feeling. That's what it's actually about. And I just got sidetracked in my head. Let me pull myself back. We're chasing the feeling. Dopamine starts rising, and then when it doesn't get what it wants, it drops horribly, and you might feel that nasty tantrum. And all you can think about while the dopamine's screaming, "I want my behavior, I want it," that's all you can think about. And in those moments, it's very hard to think, well, I've just got to ride this out for the rest of the day. But knowing that if you could just do 15 minutes, you just might make it, is a great way to start. So pull up the email, get into whatever piece of content I've shared for you in the week, and do, most importantly, the action step or the challenge in the Friday email. So this is very specifically sent out on a Friday, because Fridays are so difficult for a lot of people. If you are listening to this replay, I would love you to see if you can find a time to join me every Friday for this call. Use it as a bit of accountability for you. Set an alarm for, it's 1:30 p.m. Central European time, which is 12:30 in the UK, late in the evening in Australia, early mornings in the US. You'll have to use your Google to find out what time it is for you in your zone. And join me on the lives. I'd love to see some people in the comments, although it's fine if I don't, but I would love that. I'd love people to ask questions. I'd love this to be a bit of freestyling, and I can support you. And because it's my last appointment on a Friday, after this, I'll just be creating that email. I can spend a bit of extra time with you guys if I need to. So let's make this a real space to support each other. And I'll do my best to give you the information that you're asking for. And if there's anything I don't know, I'll be sure to check it out. I'll either ask ChatGPT or I'll find an expert. I'm not going to try and spout stuff about something I'm not sure of. It's really important that I try and serve you as best I can. Of course, this is all my own experience, and you guys are going to need to do your own research and try your own things. But what I can recommend straight off the bat, and I don't think anybody would hesitate to say this isn't a good piece of advice, is bulimia is not something that is easy to beat. In fact, it's virtually impossible to beat without support. So find yourself support, however that looks. If you'd like to work with me, bulimiafreedom.com/call. Let's chat. However, this is what I really wanted to chat about today. The danger of getting talk support is, or maybe the danger of growing up in a world in which therapy was the sort of primary way of getting support, and that involved a lot of talking. There's nothing wrong with talking. In fact, talking's great, and therapy is fantastic for so many reasons, as is coaching. However, it's really, and I cannot emphasize this enough, in the action that you take in between those sessions where the magic happens. That's why I'm a very action-based, very practical coach. I give out homework and skills and drills and worksheets and things to do so that you can begin to make progress. Because what I see happen a lot, and this is understandable because I've done the same thing, right? It's we show up for a call, we think, oh, all it's going to take is a call a week of chitty-chatty and that will magically change me. It does have an effect. But the real work is in the action steps you're taking every day to wire in new responses to old thinking, disordered thinking, old beliefs, and those urges. Just the action of when you feel an urge thinking, freedom 15, freedom 15, freedom 15, you do that often enough. The minute even a whisper of an urge comes up, you're thinking, I need 15 minutes. What am I going to do? The more you do it, the more you create that new neural loop. And even better, if you can put something at the end of that 15 minutes, that's like a little reward, not food, obviously, but what you might want to do is put, you can give yourself stickers, you can tick things off on a chart, you can do stars and have them be different sizes depending on the intensity of the urge. Because remember, every time you break that cycle, your brain's going to rewire. And then it just won't send you the urge because it knows you're not going to do the behavior anymore in response to a trigger, whether that trigger is a thought, an emotion, or exhaustion. That's another great one. We spoke about that the other day on my other channel. So doing the work is really important. And I really try and be as practical as I can. And obviously there's some deeper stuff we need to get into the weeds on. It can be so powerful for people to really understand how this all manifested. Where did these beliefs build that then led to the first diet, that then led to the binging and the purging, etc. And that is so healing. There's a lot of letting go that needs to happen. Where did we come up with our sense of self? Where did we begin to believe things about ourselves that simply weren't true, that led us in such a disordered direction? That work is so powerful and can really only be done with a little bit of help. So, but really the magic, the stuff that the only way this changes is if it changes. Like if you're starting to do things differently and think things differently than you thought them before, and done repeatedly, that automates itself into the new norm. So the process of neuroplasticity is that the more you do something, particularly if there's a reward at the end of it, the more it becomes an automated behavior. So you don't have to keep thinking about it. Just like speaking a language or driving a car, the more you do it, the more you reward yourself, and the faster you learn from the pain of the mistakes without just skipping by them, you actually want to pause and learn, the faster the new neural circuits are created. And remember, guys and girls, mostly girls, I imagine, on this channel, not because only women have bulimia. It's only because I only know women with bulimia and a couple of men, but I don't work with them. So what was I saying? Oh, yes. The neural rewiring happens predominantly while you're sleeping. And that's why the value of sleep and deep rest is so important. And that can be exceptionally difficult for people struggling with bulimia because they want to keep moving for one, probably they're trying to burn calories or came from that mindset, or two, and I see this a lot, and I spoke about this in my live on my channel on Wednesday, on the main channel, is that feeling of like, if I'm relaxing, then I'm lazy. And that's one of those wonderful narratives. When we catch it, we've got to lean into it. And there's a lot of discomfort on this journey. It's not fun. It can be powerful and challenging. I mean, you can feel a lot of pride in the work that you do. And I really encourage you to allow yourself to feel pride, even if it's for the smallest thing. Even if you just got through one meal today or one thing changed, you move the needle in one direction, feel pride. And in fact, I would suggest you start it by breaking it down into the smallest possible pieces that you can't have failed to achieve. So begin to find your minimum effective dose, and then you can build on that. So what is the bare minimum you can do every day to move the needle away from compulsion and obsession into freedom? So for my clients, for example, we might say, well, the minimum is you get up every day, you have a glass of water, you might journal, depending on the client, obviously everybody's different. And you do 3 tummy check-ins. So again, if you don't know what a tummy check-in is, in the description, you'll see under the Food Freedom resources is a resource to the Food Freedom Masterclass. It's free at the moment until the end of the month. And with that masterclass, my training on how to listen to your tummy. If you're practicing that 3 times a day religiously, the same way we put as much effort into our over-exercising or work or whatever else, what else we're doing, it's going to take energy, it'll take effort, not much. You're looking at 5 minutes to just pause long enough to find out what your tummy's wanting, and then to do the best you can to give it what it wants, and then journal about the stuff that doesn't work. Notice where you're making mistakes. At the end of every day, part of your minimum effective dose is before you go to sleep, is to take 5 minutes to just reflect on the day without judgment and shame and guilt for all the things you didn't do perfectly, and just notice, where did I trip up? Where did I have intention to do something and it didn't work? What was that about? Could I try it differently tomorrow? The mistakes are actually where the learning happens. It's only when we just self-flagellate into I'm a piece of doggy-doo, which is not helpful, rather than looking at what went wrong and saying, well, what if tomorrow I tried this? And what if this might make it easier? You start to realize that if every day you get home and you're starving and you end up binging about an hour later, it's a good chance that starving might be the reason you're binging. You know what I mean? I'm saying this because that's the lesson I got, So we have to learn the hard way. And if we can giggle about it, that's okay. So I'm going to wrap it up there. It's Freedom Friday. 2 things this week. There is in the email that I send out, there is a link to a great podcast, which I spoke about on my last live, the live I did half an hour ago, with Dr. Evelyn Tribole and Dan Harris. Amazing podcast. Listen to the whole thing if you want to strengthen that freedom muscle this weekend. And there's a challenge in the email. And the challenge for this week for Freedom Friday is to weed your wardrobe. It's that time of year, change of seasons, and we're moving from one set of clothes into another. This is the perfect time to find at least 15 minutes. And I know for some of you, this can be so challenging. In fact, it's challenging for me. It's every year when there's clothes that maybe once upon a time felt really comfortable on you or looked great. And now your body's changed. Maybe you've aged, maybe you've put on weight, maybe you lost weight, doesn't really matter, but they just don't fit the same way. And you feel really uncomfortable in them. And they might bring you sadness and I don't want to say grief, but it can be really, really challenging. Anxiety. It can be really challenging to do a bit of a wardrobe weed. But what I know for sure is there have got to be a bunch of clothes in your wardrobe that are torturing you by telling you you're not young enough, you're not thin enough, you're not beautiful enough, all the enoughs. And every time you see them, if you're torturing yourself with the I don't fit into those anymore, yeah, probably because back then you were dieting like a mother flipper and you lost way too much weight, which caused all of this problem in the first place. So instead of thinking one day I'll wear those again, it's time to go, you know what? This is where my body's at today. I may not be super comfortable. I may be struggling, but I'm not going to torture myself with clothes that simply don't fit me. And if you're not ready to give them away or throw them out yet, that's fine. Put them in a bag for a year. Label it the 1-year bag. And if you come back in a year's time and those clothes are still torturous or they still feel uncomfortable, they still don't fit, etc., Get rid of them. The more you can do to lighten the mental load and create a space that is easy to recover into, the better. And torturous clothes are up there with weighing yourself every day. It's a no-win environment. We all know this. We all know we went and bought something where we thought, oh, I'm just going to lose a few kilos and then I'll be able to wear this. And it sat in our cupboard for years. And then we were constantly in the space of binge restrict, binge restrict, binge restrict, binge restrict to try and get into this silly item, when actually we could have gone and bought another item that looked banging on us in the bigger body or the older body, whatever the case may be, instead of torturing ourselves with the clothes that just don't work anymore. Whenever I hear somebody say, I want to fit in my clothes again, I'm like, fucking throw out the clothes and start buying clothes that suit you now. Because otherwise you could be waiting a long time. This recovery thing isn't quick. It takes a while, you know. And you know what? If in a year or two's time you're like, damn it, I wish I hadn't thrown out those things. My body's changed. You know what? Good quality problem. Good quality problem. Celebrate your body by going to buy some other new clothes that do fit. All right, lovelies. Have a good weekend. If you do the Weed Your Wardrobe challenge, please pop it on the social medias. Share it in the Bulimia Freedom Fighters if you're in the group with the hashtag Freedom15. 15 minutes of freedom on the weekend. Just building it every single day or every weekend. We're going to do something new to make sure that you're taking the action required to get the freedom you deserve. All right, lovely ones. Have a wonderful weekend. And I'll see you next Friday. Same time. And please send me some Q&As and we'll get stuck in. All righty. Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.